Hi, I am Stephen Brownfried, Vice Dean of Curriculum and Learning here at the College of Performing Arts at the New School. And I want to welcome both our in-person audience and our online audience watching this via live stream or recording to the first installment of a very new series we have at the College of Performing Arts, Socially Conscious Artistry, Faculty Leadership. And today I am just so thrilled that we're going to get to share the work of an incredible faculty member of ours, Elliot Cole, who has been on our Manus faculty for quite some time at this point and has done some, I think, outrageously fascinating and inspiring work with incarcerated communities. So I'm going to let him tell you about that because it's going to be much more interesting when he does than when I do. So without further ado, Elliot Cole.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. I'm a little over-prepared, so sorry if this is a little reedy. But by accident, and to my surprise, it's turned out that the most fulfilling and most fun experiences that I've had in my life as a teacher and as a musician have been in prisons. It's work that I love, and it's changed my life. Thanks to Steve and to COPA for giving me an opportunity to talk about it, because what happens in prisons is hard to share. It's private, it's ephemeral, it's hard to document, it's hard to have visitors, hard to get cameras. So it's really nice to have a chance to talk about it. I have a few goals today. First, I just want to paint a picture for you of what it's like so you can imagine it. Most people are pretty curious about this. Second, I want to maybe help you picture yourself there in case doing some work like this is an inspiring idea to you. And then maybe also help inspire this institution that maybe this kind of work is something that, that the New School should get in on. Second, I want to brag about our students because they're amazing. And part of this work is about justice, and justice requires awareness, and I want you to be aware that there are kind, talented, hardworking, good-hearted people in prison, and people I wish that you could meet. Last, doing this work has changed how I think about music. And we all know that music is a light in the world, but let's face it, the world is very, very bright. There's lots of very shiny things. It's hard to see, like it's hard to see a flashlight in the daytime. It's hard to see what music really is and what it's actually doing and what it's actually good for. But in prison, you can really see how bright that light is. And seeing that light has changed how I think about music, and I just want to share that with you as well. Just an overview, I'm going to talk for maybe 40 minutes and then play you a song. So let's start with a bird's eye view. Musicambia. So 10 years ago, I joined a brand new nonprofit called Musicambia. My friend Nathan Schramm started it. Y'all may know him as the violist in the Ataka Quartet. He got a chance to play at Sing Sing, and just the experience of performing there was a life-changing experience for him and made him want to dedicate, for the rest of his life, a significant part of his attention to this kind of community. So he hired me to teach theory, and I started visiting a group of men at Sing Sing Correctional Facility, about an hour north of here in Ossining on the Hudson River. So today we're running 2 regular programs in New York State where we run workshops a couple of times a month. We also have occasional programs that we run workshops a couple of times a year, more like a week-long workshop further away. So our program at Sing Sing is regular. We're there twice a month. We're also in a women's facility called Bedford Hills pretty often. I haven't been, so I'm not quite sure, but several times a month. And we have had a number of occasional programs over the years. Currently, we're going to San Quentin in California and to Sing Correctional Facility near Kansas City. And over the years, I've also traveled to do workshops in South Carolina and Indiana. Our model for occasional programs is to partner with a local music school. So for San Quentin, we're working with San Francisco Conservatory of Music. In Kansas, we have partners at the University of Missouri. And our teachers go out there a few times a year for a week and work with the students in the prison and the students in the college to help college students, usually music ed or music therapy students, come in to the facility and get some hands-on, unconventional teaching experience. After a few years, I became the program director at Sing Sing, and I've also been out to Kansas a lot and managed the program there. I looked through my calendar just to see how long it's been. I've led over 100 workshops. I've helped produce maybe 25 concerts. I also write a lot of our teaching materials, including an extensive music composition curriculum that I actually wrote for one student that I'm now giving to everybody, but that was an amazing project. I orient new teachers and work with our alumni to produce concerts and fundraisers. We're a nonprofit organization. We're supported by grants and private donors. Our main expense is paying our teachers, and our biggest challenge is fundraising. So let's zoom in on Sing Sing. Any given Saturday, we have between 15 and 25 participants. We have a stable roster, so we know everybody who shows up. Some we've known for a really, really long time. A few of our original students from 10 years ago are still in the program. And I wish you could meet them. There's Hector, who lost access to his trumpet due to a COVID restriction, and so he took up the bass guitar. But man, it felt really good to see him play trumpet in our last concert again. He had learned an Irish folk tune, and I have no idea where he got it. There's Yoshi. Yoshi turned himself into a really formidable jazz guitar player over the last bunch of years. Like, for real, high-level musician. I wish I could play half of what he plays, and I've been playing guitar since I was a kid. He's also been composing more and more, and our teaching artist, Brad Balliot, has been championing his music out in the city. So Yoshi has now had his compositions performed by the chamber orchestra Dakota many times in concerts around the country, and in a big concert last fall by the Novus New Music Ensemble at Trinity Church. When he's released, he's supposed to get deported, and we're really sad about that, and we've all written letters for the judge. Hopefully we get to keep him in America because he's someone who could, I don't know, we've invested in as a society, both us as teachers and like the carceral state has spent money on these people, and it's really a shame to think that we wouldn't be able to benefit from that investment. So, fingers crossed. There's Mo, who started out quite good at the electric guitar, got bored with that, took up the clarinet, and got really into jazz manouche. He works for the college there called Hudson Link and has access to the computer lab. He's the network administrator of their computer lab. I just want to brag about him. He taught himself full stack development, MySQL, Python, JavaScript, Rust. I like programming too, so we always have something to nerd out about. But get this, I was in yesterday, and I saw him, and he told me that he's so impatient to get notation software that he started trying to code his own notation software. So I asked him if he had any messages that he would want to share, for me to share in my talk. I told him I was doing this today. And this is what he said. Hey man. He said, when you're an artist behind bars, your catharsis of expression is so important. It's so important that if you're denied that, it's like you lose your ultimate freedom. And I think what he was talking about was censorship at the last minute, which we never do. We take this really seriously. We never censor our students. We don't clean up their language. Whatever they want to say, we support. And it was just affirming to hear him say that it's, it's so important to be able to say what you want to say. And if someone asks you to do that and then doesn't let you at the last minute because it makes them nervous, ultimate freedom denied. Okay, there's Alex, a shy, soft-spoken, bespectacled bodybuilder who plays the cello. Here's my favorite story about Alex. We bought a cello and loaned it to him for him to use for as long as he's in the program. But when it arrived, something had happened in the package room, and it had been partially smashed. So here's what he did. he and a friend got their hands on a book about instrument repair. They learned what they needed to know. They got some wood glue and they rigged up some kind of jig to get the tension right. It was like a high stakes situation. They probably only got one shot at getting this right. And they fixed it. He studies the cello with the same sense of stubborn possibility. He has memorized and performed several movements of Bach suites, and most recently the Philip Glass piece Orbit. Intonation is still a very big challenge for him. It may always be, but his performances are powerful. They're very physical, pure rhythm, energy, grit, sweat. It's like a set of push-ups that somebody starts and then keeps going, and you can't believe he's still going. There's Cortez. He showed up in our program just a couple of years ago. He plays the guitar. But one day he showed me a piece that he was composing, and his penmanship was beautiful. He had the right number of beats in every bar. His piano writing was too much, but we worked on that. And I asked him, where did you learn how to do this? Did you do this growing up? I don't remember teaching you this. He said, no, he learned it that year from books that we'd brought in. I had no idea. He wrote a piece also for this Trinity Church concert that our teacher Brad put together. I saw him yesterday too and asked him if there's anything he wanted to share with you. And he talked about that experience of having his music performed. He said, when you're in prison and your music is played in the outside world, it's like a part of you is free. It gives meaning to your life. I got to hear the concert over the phone because my dad was there and he called me. I've been there 18 years, and in all that time, that was the most proud my dad has been of me. We missed Joseph, who was transferred to another facility last year. We taught him notation and theory, and he taught everybody else notation and theory. He's been drafting and writing and rewriting and throwing away opera scenes for years. Carnegie Hall also runs a program in there, and Joyce DiDonato has gone in a few times, and I think that's been a big source of inspiration for a lot of them, especially for Joseph. So he wanted to write opera scenes, so he's written a bunch, and we finally were able to produce a few scenes last year at Carnegie Hall in the Weil, the education wing, and at Trinity Church. And I got to be frightened inmate number 2. I didn't have any lines. We miss MJ, electric guitarist and singer whose passion was the blues. We really miss Poppy. He was the MC for all of our concerts. He is brilliant. You can put him on stage with no script and no plan, and he'll hold the audience's attention in suspense and delight as long as he wants. He's an old Jamaican guy who fell in love with Nashville country music. He and I wrote a bunch of songs together with lyrics by his sister, including one called Country Strong. It was very funny. He was released, and the other guys think he's out, but he had another bid to do. So he's working on a wrongful conviction petition, and we all wrote letters. Hopefully something happens with that. We miss Ali. He started out a scowling, silent guy in the back of the room. But we figured out that he just wanted to play the saxophone, and putting him in a classroom to learn music notation just did not make any sense to him at all. This was his one opportunity to touch his saxophone all week. So we just started letting him skip class, put him in the next room, and he became the happiest guy in the building. His smile was so bright, it lifted the room. But he had really bad stage fright. So when we did concerts, the audience would cheer for him like crazy to get his confidence up. And something happened, and he's at another facility now. It can happen with no warning in a day. You can be transferred. We have a lot of good stories too. Kenyatta is out and is an artist in residence at Columbia Law School. I play bass in his band. Ivan got an MSW at Columbia. Shedrick's out, Rob is out, Fox is out, but I haven't seen him. Robbie runs the prison writing program for PEN America. I ran into Jolis in a cafe in Ossining last month, and that made me really, really happy. He used to come to our workshops. He was there doing music programs before we came 10 years ago. But there was a long period where he would come and he wouldn't talk. He would just put his head down on the desk the whole time. I have no idea how he got into this, but his thing was writing two-part inventions in the style of Bach. So counterpoint was kind of the only thing that we could, that I got him to talk about. I ran into him in a cafe last month, and he seems like a totally different person. He looks great, bright, happy. He got his realty license, just sold his first house, bought himself a car. If anyone is buying or selling in Westchester, I'd love to give you his card. Some of our alumni keep in touch, and a few times a year we get the band back together and rehearse up a few songs for a fundraiser or a holiday party for the public. So if you're interested in coming to any of these, let me know. We'll keep in touch. And so looking back 10 years, some of these are some of the longest term relationships that I've had. So here's what our workshops look like. We have our own roster of 12 teachers who trade off visits 2 or 3 at a time. Our students are learning instruments: guitars, bass, drums, violin, viola, cello, keyboard, saxophones, trumpet. Everybody has an instrument. Either they own their own or we buy them and they can keep them on a permanent loan. And yes, they can keep them in their cells at Sing Sing, which is really unique. Where I go to in Kansas, they're all locked in a closet. I don't know if they get access. Everybody at Sing Sing is also a songwriter in some way or another. We're doing a concert next week, and every person who showed up to our last workshop said they wanted to lead a song. And this is really different than it used to be. There used to be a handful of stars who would lead most of the songs, and everyone else would kind of support or wait their turn. But I'm really, really happy to see that our community has developed in such a way where there's room for everybody, and everybody's developed enough and confident enough to take center stage and lead a band, either in a song that they wrote or a cover that they chose. We arrive at 8 a.m. Security takes a while. We warm up, and then we split up for individual and group lessons. There's usually quiet instruments in one room and loud instruments in another, and even in the quiet room, it gets pretty loud. If we're preparing for a concert, we'll run rehearsals and work out arrangements. I'll scribble furiously, trying to learn and record everybody's songs so I can come back with charts or get charts to the other teachers. Sometimes we'll lead classroom-style lessons on different topics. We used to try to do a lot more classroom-type stuff. We taught notation and theory, and I'd give lectures on the lament bass line or Lou Harrison's mosaic technique or triplets. But structure kind of falls apart when you try to push it too hard there. And something else emerged, a different model of education, and it's changed how I think about education. What we have there is a really beautiful example of a community of practice. Learning as social participation. Education theorists like to talk about this as a kind of informal way of learning through community building and social participation. This is how education works before classrooms, before teachers, or when everybody is a teacher. So we've taught them a lot. I'll take a little bit of credit, but often I don't know how they know what they know. It's very mysterious and surprising. They're teaching each other. They share some books. They write together. They help each other with what they need. Sometimes someone will show up with a fully written out lead sheet or a notated arrangement or a song transcribed from the radio. This really happened. And I'm just baffled. It's someone that I didn't even know was paying attention in class, you know? But they decided they wanted to do it, and they figured it out. How did they learn how to do this? We cannot take credit for it. One of my heroes of lecture giving that I was thinking a lot about with this is Jorge Luis Borges, and in his lectures on poetry, he says, we cannot take credit for the good things that turn out, basically, in our poetry. Only our errors are our own. So this is all possible because of the magic of a community of practice. Rather than keeping the freshmen in one lane and the seniors in another lane and the grad students in another, everybody works together all the time. Skills and ideas that we taught one group years and years ago keep trickling down and showing up in the conversation. I'll see a handout in somebody's folder that I totally forgot about making years ago, and it'll show up in someone's folder who wasn't there then. Things are very precious. Knowledge is very, very precious there. resources are very precious, so they get passed on, they get saved in a way that I wish I'd treated the handouts as precious that I was given by my brilliant teachers in college. And I lost. So, knowledge keeps trickling down. Everybody is learning different things at a different rate, but it's always just what they need right then for whatever challenge they're facing. Beginners can participate on the periphery and grow into central roles over time. They learn the culture as they learn the skills. It's the same thing. Everybody finds a role that lets them contribute what they can and get experience and grow. It's made me a better teacher, or a different kind of teacher. I have to be very flexible and very present. I have to listen and improvise. I have to access my whole range of musical skills and knowledge. And I have to build relationships constantly, because without good relationships, there's no belonging, and no belonging, there's no community. This is pretty different from what's demanded of me in like a lecture class at a school with a ton of students. It's really, really fun. The core practice that drives this is the concert. We have 2 to 4 concerts a year. There's a chapel that they let us use. The men have concert production down. I used to get in on a concert day at 1:30, frantically direct equipment set up, troubleshoot gear, sound check. We just barely pull off a rehearsal by dinner time and opening the doors. But now we arrive and they've set up everything. They've tested everything. They've made set plots, stage plots, set the chairs and microphones. It's really beautiful. Some of the equipment belongs to the facility, some belongs to us, some belongs to Carnegie and their program. 2 alums of this school are doing amazing work for the Carnegie program, Jean Rowe and Sarah Elizabeth Charles, if y'all know them. The audience of these concerts is the general population, a euphemism for the other guys on the blocks. We can get somewhere between 60 and 100 people in there, and prison audience, man, if you ever get a chance, is an amazing audience to perform for. They're the best audience, super joyful, super supportive, emotional. When beginners struggle with songs, there are roars of support from the crowd. There's a lot of respect for people being brave and taking risks on stage. There's a lot of celebration. They sing along, they dance, they stand up. Most of my peak performance experiences in terms of energy and joy and audience connection and sense of deep pride and meaning have happened in that chapel. Our concert programs are totally driven by the community. They decide the set list, and it's usually music by them. It's usually a mix of styles. There's always some gospel, some rock or blues, some hip hop, some classical. Some covers, lots of original work, some solo performances, lots of bands. And our teaching artists come in and play in the bands as equals. Just a word about classical music. For historical reasons, our teaching staff skews classical, but we learned a long time ago that we don't want it to be our agenda. That said, some men are surprisingly interested in it. Preparing for concerts gives focus and direction to our workshop sessions. The men develop songs, and we support that however we can. This requires a lot of one-on-one work. You find yourself in a whole continuum of roles. Some men can write a song, make a chart, and run their own rehearsal. Some can play it for you, and you help them make a chart. Some just sing a melody, and you write it down and write the chords. Some just have lyrics or a lick on the bass or a couple of chords, and you work together to get to a song. We never have enough time, so I've had to get good at sitting down with one person at a time, learn their song, wherever they are, on whatever instrument is at hand, and help them move the next step forward, one person at a time, back to back. We have a concert next week, and it's only our second concert since COVID, so people are amped. The set list includes Ryan's new rock song about love, title pending. Mo and Yoshi have written something for clarinet and jazz guitar. Somebody's doing Nature Boy, but I forgot to write down who. Wilson's new song is a love song in Spanish called Pensé. JK is going to sing Can't Help Falling in Love with You with our teaching artist, Sarah. Alex is playing the Rachmaninoff Vocalise on the cello, which reminds me I need to learn the piano part. The artist known as Memnon will perform a new spoken word piece called Forgiveness with a string quartet written by Yoshi. Shane and I will sing a heartbreaking song we wrote together called Take My Hand. At the end of this, I'm going to sing it for you today so you can hear Shane's song. And Joe wrote his own arrangement for himself and for the other string players of none other than Pachelbel's Canon. Wish us luck. So this is the end of part one of this talk, a portrait of musical life at Sing Sing, and I probably have time for a question. If somebody has a burning thought, we can bank it for later. Okay. So part two is, why do we do this? What's going on here? Why do we do this? Is it good? If it's good, why is it good? Maybe it's not good. Not everyone thinks it's good. Is it about ethics or some kind of ministry? Is it about politics? Is any of it supposed to change anything? So let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is that these people are criminals. Sing Sing is a maximum security prison. Most people are there for violent crime. Murder is probably the norm. This is something you would think about a lot the first time you went in. You might wonder what it means. You might wonder if you'd be able to feel it. You might feel some kind of chill, some kind of echo of the past, or sense a capability that you don't feel in other people. You might have friends or family members who challenge you. Why should a murderer get your time and talents? What would the victim's family say? There are a lot of needy people. Why don't we help people who are more deserving? My guess is that after a few visits, you would stop thinking about this altogether. I don't really think about it. Or when I do, like right now, it's just a fact that doesn't have any mass. There's nothing there. It's just words from me. I don't think I'm in denial. Of course, that's what somebody in denial would say. But I think that everyone I've known in this work would say the same thing. Because when you get to know somebody as a person, the reality of that personhood in the present completely outshines your imagination of them in the past. The person you know in the present, the person trying to cross their thumb under in the right place, playing a scale on the piano, is too real for your fantasies and your fear about right and wrong. If you want one, this is a spiritual teaching. I recently rewrote our orientation materials for our teachers on this topic. I thought I'd just read it for you. This is what we tell them. Crimes. Obviously, our students have committed crimes in the past, often very serious crimes. For our work, their pasts are irrelevant. We are focused on the present and the future, and we are focused on music. Everything else about their life defines them in terms of their crime, where they live, how everyone relates to them, how everyone on the outside thinks about them. They're doing that work. We don't have to do that. So we don't ask them. Criminality and reforms are not themes that we push on them. Most of us don't know their crimes or seek to. This makes it easy to focus on what's real for our community in the present. You are mostly in charge of managing your own knowledge, i.e., don't Google them if you don't want to. However, sometimes this information is revealed, either by a student themselves or by the press, happens a lot, or by accident. If this happens, don't worry. It can be difficult to process at first, but we've all been able to continue the work without it complicating our experience or relationships long term. We also commit to using human-centered language, more from the handbook. We don't call our participants inmates or convicts or prisoners. They are students or musicians or participants. In this and all of our speech, a core value is that we respect our students. Our default is to be encouraging and supportive, and we start from a place of unconditional positive regard. And just to expand on that for a moment, this isn't because I like euphemisms. I kind of hate euphemisms. It's way more important. We want our students to have the opportunity to create a new beginning, to think about themselves in a new way. Taking the identity of a musician or a student opens a path for our lives that I believe is a good one. I believe it's a good one because it's what I did myself. It's something you can build a good story of your life on. We are there to affirm that identity only, period. So I wouldn't say that we live in denial, but we do live in some dissonance. I know some of their crimes, and yet I trust them. I like them. I hope you could meet them. This dissonance is like a chord with too many notes in it. At first, it might seem like an object with irreconcilable elements, but if you spend time with it, it transforms into a whole in its own right, something you can relate to and live with. There's an obvious lesson here about prejudice. Prejudice is in the mind. Labels and categories are definitions in the mind. Reality can win if we have an opportunity to spend some time in it. And it turns out that music is a really great way to spend time with people in reality. But there's another dissonance that we feel, and this is one with a lot more emotional weight for all of us. That's the dissonance between the way we see our students and the way the rest of the world sees our students. It can be very sad to see humans in a dehumanizing place. Even if we still believe that prisons should exist and people should be in them, in the specific case of a Mo or a Bartholomew or any of our students, we hate prison. So this brings us to the political. If we hate prison, what are we doing about it? Does this work contribute in any tangible way to efforts to reform or abolish the carceral state? We're a very small organization, so it's easy to feel like we can't possibly be doing anything just by virtue of our size. But if we think about it at scale, imagine there were musicians all over the country using music to get into prisons, have transformative experiences, and build relationships. That's a world where there are a lot of people who care about justice in a personal way. You can't not care when you do it. It's very powerful to be there and have a personal connection and just to see it as it is. If everybody had that experience, I think things would change, because I don't think we'd accept the system that we have if we had to really live with it. Another way that we can help is to share our students' music, help them be seen for who they are now and who they aspire to be. This is a project we're trying to lean into in this next decade of our work. I'm working on a songbook of music written by our students. As I said before, Brad is championing their concert music in venues that he has access to. Scale that up, and we could have cultural influence coming from the best qualities of people in prisons rather than the worst. This can dispel stereotypes and change how the public thinks and feels about our prison system. Another way that we can help is rehabilitation. Studies are very, very clear that education of any kind dramatically reduces somebody's likelihood of returning to prison. That's a very tangible benefit that programs like ours give, and it's a benefit both to our students, obviously, and to society. Now, it's very interesting. The study of why people stop committing crimes is called desistance theory. And social scientists who study this model change, the personal change needed in 3 layers: actions, identity, and belonging. And I love this because it's exactly what I think a life in music offers. And I'll talk a lot more about that later. So if you're thinking big picture about society, you don't even have to get into the weeds about what is justice for such and such a crime, or whether prison is right or wrong. You can also come at it pragmatically. The way we do prison isn't just sad, it's counterproductive. We want people to be able to re-enter society and fit in with it. We want them to adjust into our culture, or our civic culture, of following the law and playing by the rules and trusting each other. Instead, we make them adjust for large sections of their life to prison culture. This is really stupid, because that's a very terrible education. I don't want to generalize about what prison culture is. I don't really know, but I think that's a safe idea, that we have a culture that probably teaches people to live in fear, that violence is necessary for safety, that vulnerability is dangerous, that you can't trust each other, you can't trust authority, and that the world has written you off. And that's how we're educating 2 million Americans. It's kind of like a shadow university system. This is really dumb. But I confess, for me, all of these are abstractions. What's real and what matters to me is the personal, and this is the heart and the heat of it. Our first impulse going in might be something like charity. Maybe at the beginning we say, oh, these poor people, they don't have anything, we have to help. But once you start doing it, it turns into something else. It turns into, man, I can't wait to hear the song that Ryan is working on. Or if Lingo will just get his thumb under in the right place on the piano, his playing is really going to take off. Real people are their own motivation. Healing brokenness. When we identify with other humans, we feel the pain of separation. If we just identify with ourselves, we don't feel anything. But if we identify with others, we feel the breaks in our society, like a break in a bone or in the body of us. Prisons are the worst breaks in our bones. So I think of building relationships across these fault lines is like making a splint and setting something right that is us. If brokenness is bad, then this is good. I'm not naive enough to say that musicians are somehow more ethical than other people, but I do think that music calls us to be in a unique way and gives us a way to be. If there is an ethical force, an ethical direction in music, I suggest that it lives on the axis of disharmony and harmony, with an arrow pointing towards harmony. Music invites us to find disharmony and to put it into harmony. I think this is a way we can think about our highest calling as musicians. Maybe the real reason I love doing this is because I love music. When you love something, you want to see it find its highest calling. You want to see it in all its glory. You want to find its best and highest use. And I hate seeing music trapped in the celebrity industry, in the fashion industry, in the Spotify streams industry. I think it's just such a waste. I also want to live up to my own potential in music and find my own best and highest use. One thing I really love about this work is that I get to be exactly the musician that I am. Out here in New York, nobody is going to ask me to play guitar. Nobody even knows that I can kind of play the drums a little bit. There are a million people to call first for those jobs. It's not really needed of me to do those skills. Out here, most of what I've learned and learned how to do, most of my life's efforts that I'm proud of, can seem under-challenged and a bit useless. But in there, every single one of my skills, whatever they are, it would be the same for you going in, every one of your skills would be useful and valued and valuable. Exactly whatever you can do. I'm somebody who can teach you a shape note hymn or a Hindustani raga or a Beatles song. I can learn the song that you're playing the first time that I hear it. I know the fingerings on a trumpet. I know the range of a clarinet. I can help you write a song. I can run a rehearsal. I can teach you counterpoint or jazz harmony. I can help you understand Bartok or Charlie Parker. At Sing Sing, I might do that all in a single day. Out here, it might be a year before I tap into all of those skills. Maybe. It's not really needed of me in the way that it's needed of me there. So I feel diluted out here and I feel concentrated in there. A lot of you are teachers, so you can imagine how exciting this is. We all carry around a lot of knowledge that we wish we could use all the time. It takes the right situation to make knowledge come alive and be useful and empower another person. So we find our purpose when we are in a situation where we're needed. And the place that's really needed me the most and needed all of me as a musician is Sing Sing. We all come alive when we actually get to use the skills that we're most proud of and when we're challenged and when we're needed. I get a lot out of working there. It's where my skills are valued. And what's cool is this. That I get out of it is exactly what our students get out of it. They also are looking for opportunities. They're looking for someone to say, we need you. And we come in and say, we need you. We need you to be a musician. We need you to get better. We need you to be ready for the concert. We need you to use these skills that no one else is asking you to use, but that you're proud of and that make you come alive. And so this is why it's not charity. I'm not saying I have something, they need something, I'm giving it to them, hooray. We need each other. I need that place to get to be me. They need that place to get to be them. So, music. I'm ready to talk about music. Why music? Is music special? Am I just making other people do it because I happen to like it? Or does it have any objective qualities that are good for people in prison or for all of us? I realize this is a bit parochial. I'm sure you could say so many of these same things about writing or theater or so many other specifically creative things. So what do we get from music? I want to think this through. We get to belong. In a deep way, we get to belong to a rich, dynamic, purposeful community of practice. If we're lucky enough to have one. I have to go there for one. Music is good for a community of practice because everyone can participate in their own way on their own level. Everybody can build an identity based on their practice instead of other things. Knowledge and experience circulates naturally, and it has good communal life defined by rituals. Warming up, performing, rehearsal, we need these rituals. Our students say that they don't have a lot of spaces in their lives where they can feel safe, feel supported, practice being vulnerable, and practice building trust, but that they can in our community. So that's belonging. What do we get from music? We get to compete. Music is peaceful but competitive. We need competition in life. We all need ways to distinguish ourselves, impress each other, gain respect and status. We need something to be proud of. Proud, dignity, self-love. It's hard to come by in prison. If violence is the only game in town, we fight. So it's good to have more games in town. Music is a channel for our drive to earn respect and status that is peaceful, and it's empowering because you have the power to improve your status. Just practice. What do we get from music? We get to express ourselves. This phrase is a little bit washed out. I almost don't even hear the words, express yourself. I don't know what that means. We get to explore difficult emotions out loud in a safe way, in front of other people. And we get to define ourselves, which gives us power over our lives. For us, it's kind of no big deal because we're used to feeling safe to express ourselves. But the value is really clear in a culture where it's dangerous to be vulnerable and where so much of your identity is defined by other people, and you're crushed under a system designed to suppress you from living your best life. So I think it's better here to think of expressing yourself not in the sense of communication, but in the biological sense, the expression of genes that forms a life, or the full expression of a flower in sunlight. It's part of living a full life. What do we get from music? We get to be beautiful. And we get to define our own beauty. Why do we perform? Performance is a way to be seen and appreciated by others in a way that you design to be seen, a way that you want to be seen. We all want to feel seen right now. It's really in right now. I blame Instagram. Instagram is therapy. But imagine the power this gives you when you're used to the whole world seeing you only one way, and only one way you have no more control of. Seeing you as the worst thing you ever did. We all have a worst thing we ever did. We all could be seen and defined like that for the rest of our lives. Thank God we're not. So music is a path where you get to define what you do, how you're known, and how you do it. You get to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet, to be seen how you want to be seen. When you perform, you share yourself in the light of your own aspirations. And we've had students tell us how good it feels to have something in their life that they're proud of, to tell their families, so their families can start having a new idea about who they are, like Cortez and his dad. There's a lot of self-hatred in prison, and it's an ugly place, so it's great that music gives us a way to be beautiful. What does music give us? We get a shape and a direction for our life and our energy. It's an endless quest. It's a calling. It's a purpose you can build a life around. It can engage your whole person, your body, your mind. It can be spiritual if that's what you need. It can be intellectual if that's what you need. It can be disciplined if that's what you need. It can be wild and free and alive if that's what you need. It's a challenge that gives us purpose and destination, and our students tell us that it feels really good to see yourself improving every day. What do we get out of music? We get to amass a treasure. I feel like a dragon sometimes. I don't know if you feel this way. I've got a little stack of compositions and recordings that are the efforts of my best efforts, and they are the treasures. They are treasures that I have in my life. No car or beach house could ever be one of those accomplishments. They are hard-won. They mean a lot to me. They are my proof to myself that I am doing something with my life that I'm proud of. And isn't it kind of a miracle that in order to get more of those treasures, I just have to go into my studio and work. I feel like Rumpelstiltskin spinning straw into gold. And when we find that we are Rumpelstiltskin, that the treasures that we want most out of life are created by us, almost out of thin air, then we don't depend on others or circumstances as long as we can work on what we care about. And when we get that, we get freedom. Of course, there are different kinds of freedom. There's no one way to measure freedom. Who is more free? Someone who doesn't have medical bills or someone who is carrying a gun? There's no way to really compare these things. Nobody has total freedom. And I'm not saying that it's okay to be in prison because all you really need in life is to practice. But creativity and imagination gives you a zone of freedom in almost any circumstance. We take this for granted because we're used to freedom. It takes seeing it in a very unfree place to see how brightly this shines. So these are what we get from music: belonging, competition, pride, expression, beauty, purpose, direction, treasure, freedom. And these are all just the side effects of music. I haven't even talked about the experience of actually doing it. At the heart of the experience, especially making it with other people, we get pleasure. And we get time in a mentally healthy state. It is mindfulness meditation. It is time out of the cage of our verbal minds. It is dopamine, and if you know how to do it, it's oxytocin. It's sacred time, it's joy, it's harmony, it's synchrony, it's unity with other people. And I want to come back to what Cortez told me yesterday about hearing his music from Trinity Church. It can give meaning to your life. One last thing, music also appears innocuous. So it's really good at being subversive. So this is my last thought for you. I have come, just in the course of writing this, to a slightly mystical conviction. Tuning, seeking harmony in sound. Tuning in, listening, presence, and emptiness to receive. Attunement, a power of listening, presence, openness, sensitivity, connection to others. Tuning, tuning in, attunement, atonement. Literally comes from at one mint, as pastors love to break down for you. At one mint, union, harmony with yourself, harmony with others. And then atonement, reconciliation. Tuning, tuning in, attunement, atonement, atonement. I know I'm almost out of time, but I have a song by one of our participants that I'd love to share with you. Are we good? Okay. This is by Shane. It was hot that day when you went away. I said, please don't play, play, play. I just want you to stay, stay, stay. No one heard, no one cared, everything blurred, I was scared. Like a little bird with no mother. Take my hand, stop the slipping sand, just for a moment or two, to figure out what's true. Why couldn't you turn around? Look into my eyes, reflecting the ground. Did you know you were Beulah bound, leaving me without a sound? Your crown of glory, my crown of thorns, leaking unsaid stories into Gabriel's horn. Take my hand, stop the slipping sand, just for a moment or two, to figure out what's true. It won't be the same. The rage will turn into pain. The pain will melt with the rain, and I will love again. Thanks for listening. I don't know if we have time, but if anyone has a question, I'd love to talk. Or if anyone wants to keep in touch. Yeah. Hi. Thank you. Thanks. I look forward to it. Thank you for coming. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we spend a lot of time strategizing how to figure out how to work with the facility. And we're really lucky. You need an ally or several allies wherever you're doing one of these. And people come and go, and situations change, and pressures from above change. It's very complicated, very political. So much is outside of our control. We've actually had the last couple of workshops have been canceled a day or two before we went because of staffing shortages and, you know, if decisions about resources or something. So, yeah, cultivating relationships also with the allies inside in the school, the deputy, the superintendent, is a complicated thing we're all learning out how to do all the time. But in general, it's a very unpredictable place to do anything, and everybody's expectations for being able to execute a plan that you made in the past are pretty low. But we get good at improvising. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we've always felt it was important, and it's something we've just had opportunities to learn very gradually. As you know, one guy gets out. It's the first time we have a relationship with somebody after. We have an official alumni program, so they're able to participate afterwards in a formal, sanctioned way. And we've continued to give lessons to some of them who are interested and have a little community of alums. More than that, we actually have an alum now who's talking with us about starting some kind of program in the transitional situation that he's in. And that's really interesting to us. We feel like our core expertise is inside, but so we haven't had a lot of opportunities to do more outside, but it's really just been a question of capacity and something we're probably going to grow into naturally, that we certainly would want to do with more resources. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, I just really want to thank you.
Thank you.
So profound, and I really, today, what's the resonating word is belonging.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it so many times today,
Mm.
so I really appreciate that. I'm a little familiar with some of these types of relationships, engagements. I don't even know what to call it because it is about belonging, more through a movement realm.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate what you shared with us today.
Thanks.
And it made me think about the students and their families and that opportunity too.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful friend. She used to work on death row and would tell me these stories about people painting and
Mm-hmm.
doing these incredible, and just that piece of how do you engage the family, or if it's possible, the
Mm-hmm.
family, and so that the incarcerated don't feel rejected.
Mm-hmm.
They feel seen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We haven't been able to execute one of these in our organization, but Carnegie Hall, who runs a parallel for the same students, they once a year have a family concert in the visiting room at Sing Sing, where people can come. And I've participated in a couple of those, and they're amazing, as you could imagine. So yeah, it's really important. I think one of the saddest things about prisons is that families get broken up, and families could be better together. And lots of our students are dads. Lots of our students have spouses, and just many are grandfathers. Our population's older than you would expect. Yeah, it seems like a good way for them to connect with their families. Some co-write songs with their families. That's happened a few times. It's great. Thanks. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Thanks.
To thank Elliot so much for this incredibly programming, and just to echo Richard's words, I can't imagine a more inspiring start to the series. We'll be back in about a month. Arturo O'Farrell will be our next installment in this series, and thank you so much, Elliot. It was just wonderful.